Welcome to Desi Return Diaries, Embracing Home Again, the podcast that shares personal journeys and expert insights on returning to India. I'm your host, Avinash Pedi, here to guide and inspire you on your Desi return journey. And today I'm excited to introduce our guest, Karthik. Karthik returned to India after living in US for almost 14 years. And he also moved here with financial independent retire early, which is a unique perspective that he can bring to the, to our listeners here. So welcome to the show, Karthik.
Thank you. Thank you, Avinash. Thank you
So
for the
why don't we get started with a little bit about your background and what brought you back to India?
Sure. So, I am a software professional. My experience has been in the supply chain industry. My specialization is in the warehouses. So, for about more than 15 years, I have been working in this space where we introduce technology into warehouses to make them more efficient and like push more volume, with existing infrastructure. So I worked in research companies like Manhattan Associates, IBM, where we developed software specifically for this domain. And I also worked in consulting, where I would implement this software for various big retailers and wholesale companies as well.
Got it.
Yeah, that's my professional background. I have two kids, 8-year-old and 2.5-year-old, and did work for 3 years in India and moved to the US for my master's. And it's been about 14 years for me working in the US. And now we moved back to India now. It's been about 2 months and really enjoying the period after the move as well.
Yeah, great. Congratulations. So, uh, I think after living for 14 years, what are the triggering points or what are some of the decision thought process for moving back to India?
Great question. So, um, I would say for anything, for to be successful, you should not have just one reason. You should have like a, multiple reasons to do a certain thing. Then it becomes much more stronger because even if one reason doesn't stick, there are other reasons that are holding up your decision. So I think from a very early on, I realized that the power of fire, that is financially independent at an early age. And what I mean by that is like what you see traditionally is people work until 60 years, 65 years, and then they take a break. But then by then they're already the health is in a decline, and which prohibits them from taking certain amount of risks that they would have taken otherwise. And I feel 40 years is the golden age where you have health on your side, relatively better health than what otherwise would have at 60. And you are also, you would have saved some money by then. So you're not like running paycheck to paycheck. So I would certainly suggest anybody who can do this to be able to target mid 40s or 40s to be financially independent, to do lots of things. Maybe I can give you details around what I aspire to do, but that is a primary goal amongst the many reasons that we have for moving to India.
Okay, so I think you kind of touched about this. There should be like several reasons and not one reason, for making this big move, after living for 14 years.
Right.
So based on what I heard, financial independent, retire early is one of the thing, and I'm assuming it's something to do with maybe the cost of living of US versus India could be the factor of retiring early and living there. I'm just guessing based on what I heard. And what are the other reasons that motivated or made the decision to relocate or move back to India in
Yeah,
addition to the
so
fire? Yeah.
it is financial independence, and I feel even standard of living. So if like, it's just pure math in my sense. Like if you live in a country and you save let's say 20% of your paycheck, the standard of living that you accumulate by saving 20% of paycheck will continue to remain the same if you continue to live in that country. Like, but then if you switch from a high income country to a low,
Cost
expenses,
of living. Yeah.
cost of living country, then the 20% paycheck that you saved will will drive you much more, your standard of living much more, because you're able to do that switch. So that was one reason. We lived East Coast, we lived in Northeast. Finally we moved to West Coast in Cupertino. We felt even how much ever we earned, the standard of living that we were living, without help, with two jobs, both of us had to work to maintain even a decent standard of living, and the real estate that we were the daycare expenses, we were not saving much, and our standard of living, I think, has been much better after moving back to India because of the freedom that we got as compared to the other. So I mean, raising a standard of living is one, fire is second. Third, I feel is again future thinking, because we have no hopes of getting green card in the near term. We're always in the risk of getting laid off. We never know how the economy behaves. So we felt like instead of having to run in the last minute, and then if you're laid off, you're thinking, you're positioning yourself in a place where you're de-risking yourself from that event. It could happen to anybody, right? So that's the third one. And then we wanted to be closer to our roots. Like after living 14 years, we never felt like that is our home. It always felt like we were there temporarily. I mean, we were enjoying the environment, but it never felt home. And moving back to India felt like, especially Hyderabad, where we grew up, this is the language we speak, felt home to us. And I thought from now onwards, be closer to our roots and be at home.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. I mean, yeah, definitely not to, fall with what happens with the immigration, just taking a proactive approach and defining your own path, and being close to the family, the roots, and all this makes sense. So when did this process start? Like, for how long have you been planning, and versus what were the steps that you have taken to make the move?
So very early on, as I said, like I was really fascinated with fire. I never wanted to work 9 to 5 till 60 years. I wanted to take risks in my life. So I would say about from the past 7, 8 years, we had this thought of moving back, and we made all our investments similarly. Like we started investing in real estate in India, Hyderabad at a very early age. That way, it helped us, so even if it appreciated with inflation, it helped us. We were on the positive side. And then, like even in US, when we bought a house, we always bought it with a motivation that we knew that we could sell the house if we needed to. So we bought a highly, what should I say, easily sellable house. And then any plan that we have taken, we had always kept this long-term goal in mind, and then incrementally work towards it.
Got it. So it's almost like a plan in motion for almost 7 years.
Yes.
A long-term view and making the financial decisions accordingly.
Right.
So anything that concerned you, like, are there any concerns when you made the decision? Just like it's a big decision. So anything that's in the back of your mind, like, hey, have you thought about this, or is everything considered? Because this is a big move. Anything that was going in your mind, that's kind of like stopping you to make the move. And the second one is your expectations before the move and after the move. I know it's been only 2 months, but just maybe living here is a different versus visiting here, right? I mean, you've been like staying here for 2 months, but anything that you can shed light on those two topics?
Yeah. So the first one, I guess people who return back to India are still in minority. I would say it's like hardly a few percentage of people that I know have moved back. So doing something that is in a minority would always put you in doubt. But I would say that should not stop you from making that decision. If you're a minority, think once or twice, ensure all your reasons are in place, but don't let the majority dictate you, because their life is their life, your life is your life. And then the other aspect is, like, when you hear negative news while you're in US, somehow I feel like the Western media has always negative news about India. So if you read such news, you will feel like, wait a minute. I mean, there's so much negativity about India, and you want to move there. Is that a wise decision? But again, I feel like if you know more about your hometown, you know more about the actual like things on the ground than anybody else. So let that not again influence your decision. You
Yeah.
take steps, but take that as an input, but let that not be the only decision for your thing. For the second part, yeah, as you said, sorry, can you repeat me the second part again?
Yeah, it's more about your expectations before the move and the reality of living here. I know it's been a couple of months, but it's good to do a quick check. How was your expectations versus like your experience living here?
I think we were expecting whatever we are experiencing now, and that's because we before we moved finally, over the last 2 years, we did spend 3 months each year, so to get acclimatized to this environment. So far, I think, like, everything we're experiencing is what we have expected.
Sounds like you have a good plan in place. So it's almost like something um, in progress or in motion for 7 years with the financials, and even for the last couple of years, you made sure you spend enough time to get the feel for the real life. So there are no surprises. So I think you seem like a planner with long-term vision and making sure everything goes smoothly there. That's good to know.
I do have a lot of weaknesses, but planning is my strength.
Okay. Cool. Um, are there some things that you miss in US?
Well, I mean, pretty obvious one is the access to nature and like the sightseeing places that you get in US. I guess you cannot do a weekly trip here. It has to be more planned and a quarterly or a yearly trip. Whereas in US, a 10-minute drive would have given you access to a park, for example.
Yeah.
That's something I miss. Um, yeah, I mean, that's about it, I guess.
Cool. So I think your plan is to retire early, which is different. Again, it's also another minority uh, group of people, right? So I think it would be interesting to know your aspirations and how you plan about it, like, living in India. Anything that you can share uh, to the team, like, your aspirations on what you're doing right now, because people move to India either as a career progression or career change or being in the professional. Some people try to get into businesses, some people try to retire, or maybe whatever it could be, like a family business or what in a different things. So it definitely would be interesting to the audience on your aspirations, your planning on what you would love to do after moving back to India with this flexibility that you have. Anything that you can share with the audience?
Sure. I would say the part of this is successful because my wife is continuing to work. So she has become the foundation for our finances now. That freed me up to, first of all, spend more time with my kids, because they're at a young age. They need that time from parents. So I'm going to use that time a lot. And then I'm going to, when I say fire, it doesn't mean like you just switch on a TV and then watch movies. It means you use your time more valuably than working from a 9 to 5 job. So I plan to take more risks in my life, like in terms of businesses that I plan to, like, establish, or maybe connect to some other team, join another team. I don't intend to work 9 to 5 for at least a few years. I want to do like part-time things. Like, for example, I want to do Udemy courses. I want to be a trainer in Udemy. and I want to explore how I can help the community and also financially earn as well. And then I have like I want to explore like supply chain industry in India. I want to use this time to is completely understand how the network works and use this time to like figure out where there's an opportunity and where I can like when I start working again, I want to be working for myself, and this will be my groundwork that I'm doing. And then again, even if I work for myself, it's risk. So I don't know how successful I'll be, but I think it's worth the risk that I'm going to take.
Yeah, makes sense. Good luck with everything. It sounds exciting.
Thank you.
Following your passion and ability to spend time with the family. Um, and I definitely echo with that, right? I mean, especially there is this graph like when you are young, you have time but no money. When you're in the middle, like in the 40 to 50 or 60 years, you have money and you have health but no time. And as you grow old, you have time and money but no health. So definitely having the flexibility to be able to define your time in the middle age, like in the 40s and 50s, definitely would give a lot of freedom and flexibility to a lot of things, spending time with the family, going with your passions, and doing what you really would love to do.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah. And switching gears a little bit, I know you mentioned that you have an 8-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. Maybe how has the kids adjusted? How has their schooling been going on? Anything that you can share on that side?
Sure. I mean, my son went to school for 3 weeks in the last academic year. So he has adjusted really well. And partly it's because of the type of school we picked as well. So there's a lot of research that goes into picking a school. We picked a school that was not too far away from our house, so that way I was able to drop and pick him for the first few weeks. And I picked an IB syllabus school. So what he tells me is that the way the teachers teach him is very similar to what he learned in the US. So that transition has not been tough. And then language is something that we started slowly training him in the US itself because we knew he would come here. So I would say maybe we should have done a little bit more. He still can just understand Telugu, can't speak, but that's something we're going to work on pretty seriously. And he adjusted very well. Like
Environment.
I know.
Yeah. How about your toddler, the 2.5? Everything good? Grandparents happy and with so many
She's
people to
having a
pamper.
blast. She's
Yeah.
having a blast because I mean there it was just three of us that was giving her company. Now my two sets of grandparents, and the weather is much better here, so she's able to go out play. Yeah, and I mean she's too young to even know that she's moved to a different country. She's like, oh, this sounds to be much better than what it was earlier.
Yeah. Cool. So, in terms of the physical move, was there any challenges that you have encountered, or anything that you wanted to explain from the logistics side, like like a physical move of relocating from one country to the other country?
Yeah. So this also was again something we learned from looking at other people. It's like if you own a house, selling the house and moving to India would put tremendous stress on you. So what I would suggest everybody is to, if you own a house, sell the house, move to a rented apartment. That way you don't have any hard-bound real estate in your name, getting rid of your personal belongings. And finally, like have only that much that you're going to ship to India. So that way, then once the shipment to India goes, then you have a pretty clean house that you can just easily uh, clean up and
Leave.
leave.
Yeah,
Yeah,
without having to think about all the logistics of handing it over and all that stuff. Yeah.
correct, correct.
Yeah.
I feel people who attempt to sell the house and move directly to India is going to be very stressful to them because the buyers will have certain terms as to when you want to vacate the house, and then it's not in your control. So you don't even know when your house will get sold. So yeah, that's the first thing you should do.
Yeah. Cool. Other than the handling of the house, any other advice or suggestions for the audience, when they're planning the move?
No, I think you have published a good checklist. Just follow the checklist. Like ensure you have trimmed all your credit cards. You take one credit card that has zero transaction fee, so you can use it in India or in your travel. Ensure you have done all the necessary financial steps. Move your 401ks to IRAs as needed. Certainly ensure that you have a US phone number when you move to India, either through Google Voice. We have used the Google Fi. We pay monthly, but I think it gives a lot of peace that I have a US number. Yeah, I mean, selling cars was a breeze. I used Carvana, and I also sold one car locally.
Yeah.
So both were very easy experiences for me. And then I've used universal relocations, and they have been pretty good so far, both in the US and in India. I didn't receive my stuff yet, but the experience so far has been pretty good. And have a plan of where you're going to stay when you move to India. And yeah.
Cool. No, thanks for that advice. I think, especially it's an overwhelming to move from one country to the other country, right? And especially after you live there for a long duration, and there are
Yeah.
so many things that you have to take care of and get it done. Cool. Other than the things that we talked about from a logistics side, is there any other advice or anything that you would suggest aspiring individuals who are thinking about moving back to India? Like maybe the framework of thinking, or or maybe the approach, or like maybe suggestions on how they should even consider that aspiration or that idea.
Yeah, great question. Um, I would say you should you should not try to find America in India. Then you are setting yourself for failure. You should put your frame of mind, so you realize that it is a different country with a different set of rules, different dynamics, and you should be comfortable with what you're coming to. Because I've seen many questions where people ask like, "Hey, uh, do I get parks? Do I get national parks in India? Do I get outdoor space as in US?" No, you're not going to get any of that. You cannot come with those set of expectations, then you will fail. The traffic is going to be bad. So hopefully you either are expecting that you're going to deal with the traffic, or you find a job where you don't have to travel.
Yeah.
And then you have some kind of plan for not having to like on weekends you should be comfortable staying at home within your community. Those are your pastimes. But then you lose something, but you gain a lot more, and you should be comfortable with what you lose because you're gaining that.
Yeah. Cool. Is there anything that we haven't discussed that you would like to bring up? I mean, before we go to the rapid four, anything that any topic or anything that you want to bring up to the audience?
I think we should have long-term planning, but at the same time, we should be our plan should be dynamic enough to consider things might change. Like today, US is at a certain level, India is at a different level. But going forward, we don't know where the dynamics of US and India would be. So thinking always that today, not how today our things are, if you expect the same for like next 25, 30 years, remember, we're talking about the rest of our lives here, right? So take that into account that what you see today might not always be there.
Yeah.
So I would say take that into account when you plan. And many people will say that I don't have time to plan for R2I. But whether you plan for R2I or not, you're by whether you're making the decision or not, even staying back in US is also a decision. I hope you're making that as a conscious decision that this is where I want to stay. And I feel many people they're so busy in their day-to-day lives that it's not their decision to be in US. They just don't have time to change their life. And I feel that is a major mistake. If you continue to be involved in the day-to-day stuff and you don't have time for these big decisions, then there is a greater chance that you might regret what you have spent the last few years.
I agree. I think it's sometimes taking a step back and looking at what you really want to do versus having the life dictate what you are going to do, right? I think it's a conscious decision. This is what I'm going to lead my life versus living the life. I mean, again, there is a slight difference of like things make your life happen in such a way versus like you are trying to make the life happen in a specific way.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
You need to be always in control of your life, not the other way around.
Obviously, and then being flexible as things pop up, right? And you are the one who's making the decisions on how you would handle those circumstances or how you would navigate through these navigate through these situations as they come up versus just let the life go as it is, or
Absolutely, yes.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's irrespective of whether somebody is aspiring to move back to India or not, but it's definitely a way to think about leading a life. I think it's a great advice. So switching gears to a rapid four. So what's your surprise thing after returning to India?
KTM. I've never used it. After using it, it's amazing.
Digital payments, man. Everyone, I think, you just need your phone. No longer need to bring your wallet or anything.
I know. It's just amazing.
Yeah. So what's your favorite travel destination in India?
I haven't traveled much, but I think like somewhere in Himalayas, like Uttarakhand, I'm going to pick a spot and go there, but I don't know the exact spot yet.
Cool. Favorite Indian restaurant or dish?
I love idli sambar.
Cool. And the favorite part of living in India, the best part?
Freedom.
Great. Yeah, so I think that's all for today. I really appreciate for taking the time and sharing your valuable journey and your planning. I mean, such a big planner that you plan for almost 7 years beforehand, and how to approach, like, not from a emotional way but from a conscious decision, whether living in US or living in India. So I really appreciate sharing your thoughts to the audience, and thanks again for your time today.
Thank you so much, Avinash. Pleasure talking to you today.
Great, thanks. Thank you all for joining us on this insightful journey of Desi Return. If you enjoyed this episode and want to explore more stories and expert advice, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Don't forget to leave a comment below with your thoughts and experiences. By the way, check out the links in the description below for our Facebook group and social media for updates and engaging discussions, as well as connecting with fellow Desi Returners. Thank you once again, and until next time, may your Desi Return journey be filled with joy, growth, and endless possibilities.